We've been known for creating SingStar, iToy, and more recently games like Dance Star and iPad. So we've been very focused on family gaming and social gaming. But unusually for a studio, I guess, we don't just develop software. We've also worked a lot in developing the actual peripherals themselves. So we actually developed the hardware for the iToy camera and the PlayStation Eye, and also the SingStar mics, and more recently our paper books. So we've had a lot of experience in developing software that goes with the hardware to make it one whole experience. So a bit about augmented reality. I think the studio itself has been working with augmented reality for, what, 9 years? So back in the iToy days on PS2, we augmented the player into the game, if you remember those titles. But when we came to PS3 with iPad, we really wanted to be able to bring the game into people's living rooms. And of course we were looking at the marker technology around that time. And if anyone remembers the first iPad, we used a card system, this marker card system. So the card was recognised by the PlayStation Eye camera, and the pet ran around your living room. And using that, we kind of created this believable experience where you had a pet in the living room. Around about the same time, we had a concept for a book, an augmented reality book. But that required actually being able to track a number of markers, and actually became something that we wanted to do later on. So iPad was our first sort of journey into sort of like AR markers. What I do have is some early prototype videos that showed some of the showed us actually playing with some of these mechanics. So rather than just tracking markers, we also wanted to be able to follow the book around. So we had this little walkie man, or a little wobbly man there, and it shows, and you can see it's slightly unrobust, us being able to track the book as you move it left or right, up or down. So this was getting us to know how the book worked, think about how we might use an augmented reality book. Here we wanted to see if you sort of like change the direction of the book, where we could get any gameplay mechanics, perhaps puzzles, or as you can see, just snapping in here. We don't usually have two people working on a desk actually, but this here is exploring what happens when you rotate the book. So now you have these 3D objects coming to life on a book. What is it you can do with it, sort of like just by exploring, so finding characters hidden behind scenes. And you can see some of these things later on. So here with the trapdoor and the dinosaur appearing, that became the mechanic that we used for the incendio, ball of fire coming out of the book. And with these here, we decided to explore what happens when particles and things come out of the book. And this is what inspired us with the text systems, and also the paper dragon coming out of the book on Book of Spells. And again, exploring what happens when you have sort of slightly more high definition objects on the book. And the rain here, it's quite subtle, but as you rotate the book and move the book, it kind of tracks it and falls in the direction of the book. So those were some of the early prototypes and ideas, and a lot of those have actually fed through into the games that we're making now. Well, the book itself was actually quite a complex journey. It is just a paper book, but the prototypes you saw earlier, we're using the first book there, so it had just one simple marker. Wasn't terribly robust and worked at people's desks, which ideally isn't what you want in the living room. So we grew the size of the markers on the pages so that we could track it further back from the camera, so that it gave us a great bigger play space and more flexibility around where people could play one book. Then we looked at wanting to be able to, when you turn the pages of the book, we really wanted to be able to track the page underneath. So what we didn't want to do was break the illusion that the pages were magical, or whatever, the content contained on those pages was lost and you could see the markers. So we decided to develop these markers around the edge of the book, and that allowed us to then, when we turn the page of the book, you could actually see the page underneath, and kind of makes it a much more robust feeling book. But they were quite big, so we decided to scale those down, so we use those just in the top right hand corner. And of course books don't look particularly attractive as books, and for us it's really important that Wonderbook was a book and felt like a book. And you can see there are various iterations of the design of the book itself, until we finally got to the sort of like final Wonderbook. We wanted it to feel fairly light, because of course we were aware that kids would be holding the book or rotating the book or moving the book around. So that was one of the things that kind of led to us deciding on how many pages the book would have. We wanted it to feel quite comfortable, so that when you held it, it's got a nice cushioned front, and we wanted it to feel good quality. Also, when the book opens, we wanted it to be fairly flat, so it involves quite a complex book manufacturing process in the way that it folds from the pages. But it is manufactured by a book manufacturing company, and it is just a head book. And we were really conscious we didn't want to have electronics, or we wanted it to be something that everyone was going to be really familiar with, and papers with. So these are some of the things that you can actually do with Wonderbook, and these are prototypes. Some of these things are gradually feeding into games, but I'll show you this video with you. See there's like a number of things that we can do with Wonderbook, and some of those things have made it into games, some of those have been prototypes where we've been experimenting with the book itself. Of course, one of the great things about Wonderbook is you can really bring illustrations to life, and you can really create 3D creatures on the book. So you can pick up the book and you can kind of rotate it around. And I know that when we play the Scorpion game at home with my kids, my son's always chasing his sister around with the Scorpion as it snaps about. But it really does bring it to life. And one of the things that it does do, especially with younger audiences, it actually brings about emergent play. So kids start to play with the content on the book itself, which is something that we've discovered as we've gone through usability testing as well. Of course, we can, in the Book of Spells, we're inspired by paper theatre to tell, or paper environments to tell stories. And that's one of the things, of course, you can do with Wonderbook. Our vision for Wonderbook was more than just stories, was also to bring interactive reference to life and allow people to explore content in totally new and unique ways. Also, the great thing with augmented reality is that you can actually bring world environments to play. You can actually bring great big environments to life in their living rooms. So we do this in the Book of Spells, where we create environments that you can actually spellcast in. But also you can imagine creating environments where you can actually see dinosaurs at full scale. So once we've gone through the process of sort of prototyping and we've developed Wonderbook, I guess the most exciting thing for us was then going out and talking to content providers. And actually everyone that we've ever shown it to has been really excited about the book. And I guess we're obviously very excited to be able to work with, you know, some of the world's leading authors. And with new talent as well, with Dix Nightcrawler, we're working with Moonbot Studios, which is a new storytelling, for new storytellers. But you know, we're also working with really established reference publishers such as the BBC. And also we're really, we we've started to talk with Disney, and we're talking about bringing their stories to life on Wonderbook too. So for us, that was kind of a really great moment to suddenly go through this process of exploring and then finding out, finding these new forms of content to go into the book. But I'll start first, of course, with the Book of Spells, which is the first book coming onto the Wonderbook in the franchise. So the book itself, as I'm sure you know now, enables really you as a player to feel as though you're a student of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. It's 200 years old, and it's found in the restricted section, and of course it's written by our Miranda, who's a well-known author of spell books. Essentially what was really empowering about the Book of Spells is it actually allows you to take on a role and actually feel as though you're a student. And that was something that we really focused on. So I've got a short video that actually which actually introduces Rob, who's at the back, who talks a little bit about how we developed the Book of Spells.
Peggy 7.
One of the things that we really wanted to create was an authentic experience, one that made you feel as though you were really actually a student. But we were inspired by making sure, as well as being authentic to the world, that we were authentic to the period of time that the book would have been created. So it's 200 years old, and that became our inspiration for a lot of the look and feel. Also the music is directly taken from that period of time. And we even went to the lengths of arranging the orchestra in a traditional way when we did the recording, so it was exactly as it would have been 200 years ago. For the art, we looked at things like telling stories that was these paper environments that were of that period. We also went back, so when we developed the book, we wanted it to actually feel as though it was produced 200 years ago. And we went back to pencil sketches, so every single spread, and I think there are 165 pages in the Book of Spells, was hand-drawn. It was then inked over as well, and then hand-coloured. And then on top of this, of course, we created the animations to bring it to life. So for us, the authenticity of the book was really, really important. So now I'll talk a little bit about Walking with Dinosaurs. So we're really excited to start to see that their reference content and coming onto Wonderbook and look at new ways of bringing that content to life. So I've got a short video that kind of shows the inspiration or aspiration for dinosaurs.